Okay, so this one's 5.3, developing square root equations. It says, given the table below, write the equation of the square root. Equation. Okay, it's a bit repetitive. The equation for a general square root function is y equals a times the square root of x minus h plus k, where hk is a starting point looking at number 1, my starting point is 1, 2. So 1 is my h, 2 is my k. Then a is the difference in between your y values. So it's kind of like finding the slope from the table. You take your second y value and subtract the first y value from it. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And these two numbers have to be the same. If they're coming out to not be the same value, then you need to check your arithmetic again. So a is negative 1 for this one, h is 1, k is 2. So my equation looks like negative square root of x minus h plus k. I know my h and k. So y equals negative x minus 1 plus 2. And if you're not sure about if it's plus and minus on the inside, if you think you might have, put the wrong number, the sign, you can always put this back into the calculator and check the table to see if it matches up with these values. So number 2, my starting point is negative 4, negative 6. So negative 4 is my h, negative 6 is my k. And I'm looking at the difference in between my y values. Negative 2 minus a negative 6 is positive 4. And 2 minus a negative 2 is a positive 4. So a is 4, h is negative 4, k is negative 6. So let's say y equals 4 times the square root of x, and h is negative, and I'm subtracting a negative, becomes a positive. So x plus 4 minus 6. So number 3 says write the equation of a square root function that has been stretched by a factor of 3, shifted to the right 9, and shifted up 6. So this square root function starts at 0, 0. If it got shifted to the right 9, it'd be over here at an x value of 9, so 9, 0. And then it got shifted up 6, so it'd be up here at 9, 6. So 9, 6 is my starting value. Because the parent function starts at 0, 0. But it's been shifted, so that's my starting value. So h is 9, k is 6. And then the stretching by a factor, that is my a. So the word problem is actually a lot easier to find my a, my h, and my k. Versus the table. The table, you have to actually do some arithmetic. So y equals 3 times the square root x minus 9 plus 6. So number 4 says it has been reflected over the x-axis, compressed by a factor of 1/2, and shifted left 4 units. So it should have started at the origin at 0, 0, but it went left 4. So now it's at the point -4, 0. So h is -4, k is 0. And that 1/2, that factor of 1/2, that tells me a. And then reflected over the x-axis, for it to be facing up, and then reflect over the x-axis to be facing down, that's going to mean that I multiplied by a negative. So I multiplied by a negative, so I have -1/2 times the square root of x plus 4. And my k is 0, so I'm not going to say plus 0. That's just my answer. And I'll leave number 5 to you. But be careful, it says also find the inverse. So on the back of 7, it says graph the following functions and its inverse. I'm going to find the inverse of number 7, but I'm not going to graph it. So I'm going to make a table. So I have f and f inverse. Looking at f, I'm going to start with x. So in the parentheses, I'm following PEMDAS, I have x plus 3. So the first thing I did in my f was add 3. Then I'm working my way out. Exponent is next, so I squared. And then I have to say in the same term, so all of this is together. So I multiplied by -1. Then the last thing I did was subtract 1. So with the inverse, I'm going to start at the last step. That's going to be the first thing that I undo. So the opposite of subtract is add. So I'm going to add 1. The opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to divide by -1. The opposite of square, square root. The opposite of add 3 is subtract 3. So make a little side note, because since I'm dividing by a -1, I just want to make a little side note. I'm going to say x plus 1. When I divide that by -1, both of my terms change sign. So it's a positive x. If I divide a positive by a negative, it becomes negative. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So I really have -x minus 1. Then I took the square root of that. And then I'm going to subtract 3.